Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to this COMEX AI session, which is AI in education. I'm Amr Baabood, and I would like to welcome all of our great speakers and panelists to this conference. And thank you to all of our delegates for joining as well. As you will know, this is the final session of the COMEX AI conference, but one of the most important. Of course, the ensuring the education, high quality education, how we deliver that education and how we can continue to improve on the technology to ensure that all forms of education are delivered as efficient, as effectively as possible, not just during the COVID pandemic, but even going on past that. Even though all the schools will open and universities, we believe that hybrid education will continue to play a much more important role. In terms of AI in education, of course, there are so many tools that can help us to develop skills of our students and testing systems, to also help us to drive efficiency, personalization, and streamlining of admin tasks, which can allow our teachers the time and freedom to provide understanding and which basically allows the machines and the humans to work together so that the teachers can focus more on those capabilities which humans have, such as leadership, creativity, to be able to give for more personalized teaching experience to our students. And this is not just students, kind of the young students, but students in all lifelong learning as well. And after this session, we have the COMEX AI for future kids and young adults, where the students will be talking about their experience as well. So thank you again, and we hope you enjoy this. This session is recorded. This will be shared very widely after this event, and we hope you enjoy it. So I'd like to call on our first speaker, who is Edwin Diender, who is the Chief Digital Transformation Officer at Huawei, based in Shenzhen, China. Edwin, welcome, and you can the mic is yours now.
Thank you very much, Amr, and thank you very much for the organization to set this up, to arrange these important days, specifically when it comes to education, right? It's often said that students are less than 20% of the world's population, but it's also added that they are 100% of our future. So I think it is instrumental that we pay attention to this. I would also like to start off by explaining a little bit that I am a strong believer of technology being able and allowing us to do better what we already do best. And that also goes with AI. I don't think if technology is not allowing us to do better that we already do best, that we should use this technology actually. I think if we have technology that's just great, and if we have technology that just makes technology look good, it's very good for that piece of technology to be put in the museum of the future. But again, I'd like to stress and like to point out that I'm a strong believer of using and having and embracing technology that allows us to do better what we already do best. And it also goes for AI, as I said. I don't think the A of AI is necessarily means artificial, to be very honest. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. I've published enough about it. You can search this on the web if you like. It's called 5 A's of AI. I got 5 different explanations of what the A of AI stands for, and I don't think it's artificial. Smart education. I think we are at the verge of moving into more immersive, more augmented reality and more digital technology in learning and teaching. I think where we are right now is a bit online and a bit offline, a bit digital and a bit analog, if you like. Computing power and computing need is being utilized. And I think we are currently where hybrid learning and hybrid teaching sits. I am Chief Digital Transformation Officer in the Huawei Enterprise Business Group for Huawei Technologies. And I help our customers and our partners with their digital journey. My presentation is divided into 3 sections. Of course, I'd like to share with you a few stories where the things that I will talk about already are at play and are up and running. Even though I might present pieces of technology that could come across as futuristic or not for now, um, everything that we do and all the things that I'm talking about are actually already live and up and running somewhere in the world, not everywhere in the world, somewhere in the world. So the future, you could say, is not tomorrow, but the future is already now, because some of these cases, some of these stories are 3, 4 years up and running already. I also like to introduce a little bit of the background and some technologies that build this hybrid learning solution, if you like. But first, let me touch upon where we are or where we come from when it comes to education and conventional education. My colleagues tend to say these are the pain points. I don't like to talk in terms like pain points. These are just observations. This is where we are. The conventional way of education relates to school administrators, to teachers, and to students, and it's rather offline. I often use the examples in a following way. Imagine transportation. Imagine transportation where people are being transported from location A to location B. That was a long time ago done with horses or by foot. And then came vehicles, if you like. And if you look at the vehicle, a horse-pulled carriage from a long time ago, and you look at it today, a car today or a bus, the way we are moving is so tremendously changed. We still move. We still go from A to B, but the way we do that is not the same as it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or even longer ago. Um, that is a good example of how things have changed over time. The same goes for communication, telecommunication. The phone that you have in your hand today, maybe you are participating today in this session with your phone or with a mobile device. That's a communications device. I'm sure we can remember pictures, or we can keep in our mind pictures of 100 or even more than 100 years ago when the first phone call was made. We still communicate with each other in a similar way, but the device has changed tremendously. And now imagine a classroom. Imagine you and me, if you're at the age group that I am part of, then you had a teacher in front of class. There were no computers at that time. Later, there were still people in front of other people trying to explain and go forward. If you look at paintings from 1,000 years ago, education is someone in front of a large group of people explaining and educating and learning and so on and so forth. If we look at our children today, they are virtually in the same environment. Not much has changed when it comes to education. Not much has changed when it comes to educating. I think that is where conventional education modes, as described on this slide, are right now. But there are digital technologies already able to support us. There are already components available, building blocks, if you like, available that tap into the idea of digital or smart education. And it unlocks the potential for ubiquitous learning. Learn where you like, learn how you like, personalized learning, targeted specifically to each individual kid or student themselves. Group learning, not so much in class physically, but also online and digital community creation. Massive online learning materials, interactive teaching. In a classroom, children can stand up or raise their hand if they want to have a question, but in digital, there are so many AI technologies also that can recognize if a child stands up when a child, for example, participates in a class via kitchen Wi-Fi at home. And there is even digital technology available that can understand if the hand gestures of a person is sign language. Imagine this for digital inclusion, where heuristic teaching and personalized teaching now becomes and comes more at play and comes more at hand. And that brings me to a solution that is able to tap into that. That brings me to building blocks that when stitched together and combined together, create such an environment and can co-create, or at least creates the baseline and the starting point of that. Here you see, I'm sorry, there's things popping up on my screen and I'm clicking away. I'm sorry for the interrupt in this particular way, but it's confusing me a bit. Here, innovative teaching methods to improve the quality of education sits around different scenarios, and a hybrid infrastructure that can understand online and offline, digital and analog, and different versions of group and individual teaching carried by a hybrid learning platform. Cloud, as we talk about, and I realize that I represent a high technology type of organization, the way we abbreviate, the way we use acronyms, our vocabulary is infused with not always easy to understand
I think we may have lost Edwin's connection.
I can see, yeah.
Okay, you're back, you're back.
Can you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you again, Edwin, welcome back.
All right, I'm sorry for that. But hey, it is technology. And that means that that means it should allow us to do better what we already do best, as I said in my introduction. If it's not doing that, I need to disconnect. I need to disconnect. Cloud is a mechanism that overlays different technology silos and that is able to comprise this information and distribute this information faster, promote this information faster, and log on for different organizations and different people to make use of it. Pre-class is where, for example, Cloud allows a teacher to create digital courseware and distribute that courseware to specific students, or maybe fellow teachers and professors to have some buy-in, or to have someone to look over their shoulder and co-create. But in pre-class, there is a lot of information available that can be shared already. During class, there is digital and online and offline technology available for live teaching, even when students are not physically in class, but perhaps are in another classroom, or as I said before, using kitchen Wi-Fi and participating in class at home. But it will still be live, just like we are now. I am trying to get some information across to you. You could perhaps say, in the world of education, I am a form of a teacher and you are a form of a student. This is also live. You can raise your hand, you can ask questions in the chat box. There's a video stream so we can see each other eye to eye and so on. Post-class is where exams are taking place. If students are taking online exams, then there are a lot of mechanisms around it that allow that exam, number one, to be able to provisioned, number two, to be supervisioned, number three, to be checked, number four, to be authorized, but also in a very fast way, help a student understand if they're on the right track, whether answers are correct, and so on and so forth. So a hybrid learning solution, innovative teaching methods to improve the quality of education, comes with a framework. U-Learning is the name that we've given, and where the combination of different partners and different technology vendors such as Huawei work together to create this framework and to provide a digital school portal, a digital or a live classroom remotely, digital versions of management of all of that, online teaching added to offline teaching. Online and digital are additions to how we are normally teach. Same goes for authoring of courses, but rather than writing them on paper and using a word processor, this is also a mobile way, a digital way of distributing that, and that it best fits an optimized version of the different screens that, for example, students and other people are looking at. A smartphone screen requires different dimensions than a computer screen or a large smart board, for example, in a group classroom. Let me break this down a little bit from pre-class to in-class to after-class. So generating courseware in a very intuitive and quick manner. Earlier, a teacher had to perhaps go to a computer, type specific words in paragraphs and chapters and create a booklet, maybe convert into a PDF that can be emailed, that can be downloaded by someone, that can be printed out by someone, or that actually can be printed into a real book, a paper book. Imagine still doing that, but imagine also that on top of that, there is a possibility to create a repository, a library, for example, of all this digitized content that makes it easier to distribute, that makes it easier to link it and to target very specific individuals with specific pieces of information that a teacher now is capable of providing. So generating in a quick way digitized versions of regular courseware or new courseware. Maybe today something happens in the news that is so important that we want to reflect this in one of the classes tomorrow. It's not always easy to get your hands on the right materials to do that. But with the way of digital, of course, that is far more possible. One-click import of content via computing power if something happens right now while I'm in class, I can actually open up a computer. I can log on to the web. I can find the information I need as a teacher, and I can share that with my class as I go forward. So it's almost instant, if you like. That brings a new dimension to teaching, but also to learning. And the same goes for preview. We don't necessarily have to meet each other face to face at the end of school where all teachers are sitting together, they go through the day, and then they'd like to have each other's input on different pieces of information that has been shared or different ideas that need to be shared for the day after. So online previews also allows teachers to work together, and maybe even parents and teachers and students together in a digital way. Remote teaching combined with live interaction, as I said before. Of course, we understand the difference between a regular classroom and camera technology that allows other students and teachers in other buildings to join. That's a main classroom and a remote classroom, for example. But this could be anywhere, anytime, even time zone independent, device independent. This could be something that's pre-recorded and then that is broadcasted, or just like YouTube or other streaming videos. You can click on it, and this is material that comes your way as you want it, or as you need it, or as you need it now. The uLearning platform sits on top of or sits within the Huawei cloud. And it really breaks the restrictions between, or it breaks down the borders, if you like, of physical classroom and physical services. Live interaction, in this case, as I also mentioned before, means that yes, anyone can raise a hand or can stand up, can ask a question. There is a live interaction. It's not distant and disconnected. And as I said before, yes, there is also a possibility to see whether someone who stands up and makes hand gestures, whether these hand gestures are sign language. And this sign language can be translated by an AI, an interactive engine that sits within this infrastructure and this platform that can transpose and transform the sign language gestures into a voice that comes out of a speaker or a subtitle in different languages on the bottom of a screen, for example, and someone who speaks back in regular voice. So in my case, I could speak to my screen as I do right now. And maybe if you are a person who is audio impaired or deaf, there is a little avatar that pops up in the corner of your screen that speaks sign language to you and that translates what I'm saying with my voice. Are highly possible. During class, the demonstration of courseware, annotations, digital sign-in, even voting, polling, for example, roll calls, group discussion and brainstorming, and even classes and quizzes in class to see, is class on par? Even though we are remote, even though we are not in the same classroom, it doesn't mean that we are not collaborating. It doesn't mean that we are not working together as one. We are working together as one. We are blending offline and online. We are blending analog and digital. That makes digital teaching and learning more intuitive. Also goes for course inspection. During class, after 20 minutes of teaching, a teacher can ask, okay, let's do a little test. And that goes very instant, and that goes very direct. And the same goes for inspecting of these courses and so on and so forth. For sake of time, I'm going a little fast. I'm not going into details. The presentation I will share with the organization, by the way, so you can ask them if they can share it with you. So this is a presentation that I will share with you. After class, exams, AI engines allow digital exam records to be tested, to be checked, to be examined, actually, a little faster. So a teacher, instead of having to do this paper by paper, page by page, question and answer by question and answer, student by student, AI analytics and AI engines can help do that a bit faster. And it can also add an addition to it. Where in the 25 or the 100 or the 200 questions on different areas of interest is the student very good at, and where does the student needs to improve or learn a little more, and what exactly does such a student then needs to learn? An AI engine can also collect different forms of information and curriculum and target this specifically to where the learning management system shows where the development of a student sits when it comes to understanding the curriculum and comprehending the materials within. Within such a platform and within such a service also comes different forms, diversified, if you like, ways of evaluation and grading. The way how digital teaching sits is also in the distribution a little different, and that means in the grading perhaps also a little different. And as I said before, an AI engine that can add to understanding where the student is lacking a part of all the information, so not everything or not the whole, but specific pieces of the information, then an AI engine can also add specific pieces of information that are specifically for that particular purpose and makes it more efficient. That's actually basically what it is, being more efficient in the things that we do. A single service window here represents how and in what way are we able to dive into all this material, how we are able to dive into all these services and all these systems. On the left, you see an example of a screen, which is called Idea Hub. Idea Hub is a hub of ideas, a hub of information sharing, a hub of collaboration. It creates online and offline teaching models, and the mobile version of that sits on a smartphone or a tablet or a computer, similar to how we are now using Zoom for interactive sessions like this, information sharing. I'm sharing my screen. You can raise your hand. There is even, I think, closed captioning, which means that my poor English perhaps is translated into a subtitle, so you can hear and read what I talk about, and you can see on the screen what I talk about. This is a single service window. This always looks the same. So no matter where you would join, whether a student or a teacher would join via such a large screen in a group session or class, or via mobile, or via PC or computer or tablet, it would always look the same, and it would give you access to exactly the same systems and services that sit behind it and that talks to it. To build an immersive experience, so to bring, even though we are digitally remote, but to bring everyone together, there are technologies within that makes it more intuitive, that makes it more lifelike, that are not brain draining when it comes to the blue light that sits in the screen. If we're looking at a screen for 1 hour or 2 hours and we need to change that, there's a lot of technology that helps make such a service and make such a single window also be used in and be able to be worked from in the most intuitive and most natural way possible, and healthy to our brain and healthy to our eyes. This is a bit of the underlying technology, the foundation, the baseline. Again, for sake of time, I will not go into much detail, but there's a lot of technology underneath, around it and within, that creates a digital foundation that can help support a hybrid teaching and learning model, and that can already make technology add to where we are now. And that allows technology to help us do better what we already do best, as I said in my introduction. And that brings me a bit to the end, to success stories. We have been doing this as an organization for more than 28 years already. Early after our foundation and early after our start, when we were founded, we already were and still work in the domain of education in two ways. The way that I've just described, but also in a way of having technology and bringing technology to different schools and different classes in their digital infrastructure. So bringing computing power to students, allowing technology universities and technical universities to embrace the latest technology as we have it, as we are developing it in the world of mobile networks, for example, in the world of mobile connectivity, in the world of fixed and mobile convergence, in the world of mobile devices like smartphones, and allowing students to learn what that technology is about, to bridge the digital divide, so to speak. U-Learning as a platform, as a system, is used in several academic organizations. As you can see here, this is where biometric IDs and exam monitoring and proctoring takes place in many of the universities that are available throughout China. This is a case on for the Asia Pacific region. Sub-Saharan Africa, this is where provincial K-12 schools are being supported by similar digital technology. This is from Southern Africa, where throughout the nation, north, south, east, and west, coast to coast, if you like, but also from the heart of the nation, digital and digitization and digitalization services are being used to create an environment where students, where kids can sit where they like, no matter where they are. If there is a connection, and there is a lot of mobile connections in South Africa, they are able to join class. They are able to attend class. They don't necessarily need to run maybe 5 or 6 miles through forest and hard environments before they reach the road physically, a physical road where the school bus is waiting to drive them to school. This was the case 2-3 years ago even. But since 2-3 years ago, we were able to digitize and bring digital to the nation. And now everyone, not even every kid, but really everyone who wants to learn something can log on online and make use of hybrid teaching and learning environments, supported by AI. AI to help us do better what we already do best. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Edwin. That was a very interesting presentation showing all the types of techniques that are available to us to be able to better improve the experience of our students and ensure that they have a great quality education, and also for the case study that you were able to provide. So thank you, Edwin. Any questions from any of our delegates or speakers, please can you put them in the Q&A section, and we will be going through those at the end of this session. So I'd now like to call on our next speaker, who is Dr. Jassem Haji, who is the president of the Artificial Intelligence Society in Bahrain. Welcome, Jassem, and the floor is yours.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري يسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Hello everyone. I am a Bahraini who's delivering a presentation from Dubai to audience in Oman, and my laptop is somewhere in the air. That makes it very global. I will therefore please bear with me, looking at me for the next 10-15 minutes to deliver a new era of AI in education. And when I say a new era, I mean the new classrooms, the robotic classrooms. And here the teachers have to bear with me for underestimating the future of the education without human being. Let us first look at the past 1.5 years and assess if what have we been doing is actually a transformation or not. To me, it is not. It is something of the past that we're trying to bring into the market and calling it a transformation in education, i.e. The remote and distance learning and teaching. I did my master's degrees in late 90s, and the topic was about video conferencing and distance learning and teaching. So you can imagine how old this technology is. But because of the situation, because of the demand that was brought forward and perpetuated as a solution for everyone. Of course, students being smarter than all of us, than the teachers, they found many gaps in that education systems. Gaps to their advantages, to their mind that was to their advantages. But it is our responsibility to assess that. Is that what we want to go with? I beg to differ from many people who believe that education is on the right track with the current digitalization. And I believe AI is the smart classrooms, the robotic teachers, the virtual environment, the one-on-one teaching. And I'll explain each of those, what do I mean by each sentence, because that needs to be carefully assessed. But before we get to all that, the heart and the soul of what we want to do with all buzzwords that I just explained is the data. Should we not have data? Should we had not data? That's why we find universities, schools, kindergartens, that they had continuity and they had data of the students. Not only their students, their personal data as related to the school, but what is their private life? What is their parents' life? How have they been performing from LKG onto the universities? How many of us can actually go and find an education system where it can provide you with all those data under one umbrella. And that's the key. If we have not, we have to start now, because AI by itself will not be able to do anything. It's analyzing those data, is forecasting, is putting a program for them, is putting the entire lecturing and the programs that goes with the education system. Now, what do I mean by virtual classrooms? Let us look at it from the education perspective a little bit. Today, you have students, varies from 15, 20 to 30 in a classroom, depending on the school, the country, the region, that a single teacher try to deliver the same message to all of them, regardless of their potential, regardless of their capabilities, in one way. And that's a big problem that have not been solved. That could have not been achieved through one-on-one, let alone now through distance learning, where there are no emotions or interactions between the teacher and students. So the solution is, as many countries already started, is robotic classrooms. And what do I mean by that? I mean is one-on-one teaching. So you have a virtual classrooms where an AI, as an assembled in a robotic or a virtual teacher, each students will have a single virtual teacher or instructor where they will communicate one-on-one. And this way, there are many, many advantages. If I may list down few, that you find a student with certain capabilities, limitations, or advantages does not have to wait for others to learn, for instance, a lesson that for him is music to his ears. Or if he has limited capabilities, he doesn't have to wait for others to go, as they move faster, he or she will be able to get special attentions. Now, this is all about providing a data onto one of those students. But to do that, you require background of students, let alone from LKG and primary schools, to be able to build on that. And you will find in future, some of the students may not have to complete the 12 years. They could graduate on year 10 or 11 because they are more talented. And why should they wait for others? And some, maybe they require a year or two more to be able to finish it properly, not to rush them out. And when they go to university, that record goes with them. You don't have to, as the teachers changes, start understanding and knowing those students from the beginning. So the capabilities of AI will follow the teacher, the students all through their life. This includes their private life, their parents, personalities, and how to adapt to them. And this is also helps another part of it, which is professional attention through social specialists that available in schools nowadays, maybe 200 or 300, 400 of students. In future, you'll find a counselor for each student. Now, going back a little bit to the teaching and replacement of human with robotics, many may argue that the human factor is still available. True. And today's teacher will be spared to do more strategical and higher level thinking rather than getting engaged with daily tasks. And even as I believe my previous colleague mentioned, the correction of the exams, even the preparation of the exams is done through AI analytics, and it does not even need human to provide the machine with the information on the latest to be able to update the syllabuses or the curriculum. AI through a search engine can provide you with updated curriculums every quarter or half yearly to be able to keep up with the events that is happening and the advancements around the world, which is happening very rapidly. And as I said, the corrections that is taking now hours or days, it could be done in minutes, so students could be relieved with exact guidelines provided it. Again, this is all to do with the algorithms that we put in place, that as the virtual classrooms advances and matures, it learns new tricks, it learns new capabilities, and also analyzes the data with data sets that is pertaining to the students. This will take us to the new horizon, even as far as the disabled children are concerned, which today are probably disadvantaged because of the ability to go to schools or attend classrooms with others. And this should bring all talents under one, regardless of their capabilities. And the other advantage is going to be, we will see soon, as an introduction of the future classrooms, an international classrooms, where you find students from Africa, from Europe, Asia, America, in one classrooms. And I don't mean courses, I mean throughout their career, where they can join despite different geographical locations, languages, etc. And I have seen some models where even there is AI translation, where the lessons taught can be translated in different languages, and communication between the students can also be translated back, depending if they don't want to unify them all under one single international languages, etc. So to sum up that, this is how we're going to see the classrooms evolving, rather than seeing the traditional classrooms with the capabilities provided, such as dashboard, document sharing, etc., from remote location. We will see more of AI enablement on the schools. And of course, there are challenges to it. I have provided you with the advantages that this goes with it, but the challenges are great, starting from the cost and the algorithms that is required, the collection of the data, because all that without proper data provision is going to be very difficult. But once you have the data, it will stay with it. It will not disappear with changing the schools or students. And the sharing of the data is, of course, as important as we see that's happening, the acceptance of it. And starting from kindergarten, of course, to see the fruit of it, you require several years ahead of you to do that. And of course, the most challenging part is the human accepting to update the machines with the data to be able to take over one day. Most, I would not claim by any means majority, but the entire teaching staff, but majority will, especially those routine and agonizing tasks, will go to the AI. And this is something that I believe everybody can think about and believe that this is going to appear soon. However, we in GCC are fortunate that AI is an integral part of what we do every day in different parts of it. So I believe one of the countries is, and then GCC will continue looking at such advancements, because I don't believe in future this is a choice. It will be imposed on all of us. Sorry again for misplacing the device, not be able to share with you some of the statistics that I wanted to do, but thank you for listening to me today, and thank you for your invitation from our beloved Sultanate Amman.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jassim. That was a very interesting and different take on the kind of view of currently what is happening with AI in education. and kind of the global classroom, which we're very excited to see coming up, which can add so many benefits, you know, with students interacting with students from across the world and teachers from across the world. So that's very exciting. And thank you. Even without your laptop, you managed to deliver a great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jassim Haji from Bahrain, but currently in UAE. So I'd like to call on our next speaker, who is from Oman. He is Saeed Al-Wahibi. He is a director of Oman's Ministry of Education. We're very happy to hear him here and hear him speak from the ministry's take on this new technology. Saeed, all over to you now.
Thank you, Amar, for inviting us, and I hope I can deliver something about AI in education. So if you don't mind, I will share my screen with you.
Yes, of course. We can see it, yeah.
Yeah. Is it clear?
It's clear, yeah. I think if you just open it in the presentation mode, maybe that will be better.
Yeah, it is better. Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who is in the panel right now, and thanks for the Dr. Jassim and Speaker Edwin. I think I will not add much more, but we are in a way where we can explain the AI, the role of AI in education, and how the Ministry of Education was dealing with AI. So the Ministry of Education has empowered by the speech of His Majesty on 23rd in 2020 in February, where His Majesty stated that artificial intelligence will be supported, or it will be integrated to all of small and medium enterprises and all of services. Another way where we are focusing in education, Beijing Consensus in Korea has focuses in 5 areas of education that will be good to be used AI in education. So one of them was in management and delivery, which is really highly important to start with the management to manage and delivering the education with a proper way. The second one was with the teaching and teachers, where are the main pillars who are delivering the education. And again, we are looking in learning and learning assessment, where the tools will be used to make education easier to be delivered, and tasks will be much, let's say, in an UX manner. So the last thing, and it was like offering the lifelong learning opportunities for all. And here where Ministry of Education was like framework the portal, educational portal, to be informative for all of students, parents, or whoever joined the Ministry of Education portal or who are visitors. We will be delivering the learning opportunity as long as life. And here are where the AI, let's say the main points that AI reflects in education. So we think in the Ministry of Education, we can benefit from AI in those points. I'm not going to deep, as Mr. Edwin has been more deep in explaining the education. So the first and foremost is like the classification. We have been finding that most of the teachers vary to evaluate the students and making them on the groups. And we think by AI, we can make the adjustable and makes the students in groups and teacher as well on the groups, by the way, delivering AI courses and customized courses and training for them in order to encourage learning. So we think also that there is a gap in education. So sometimes we have there is like what we call difficulties in accessing internet. So we think that with using AI technology with the internet together, we can fill the gap in education. One more thing, that additional support to perform educational tasks. And here we have set in point number 5, we have set an like a discussion room in July, the 1st July, that discussing with the teachers and other students together what can be AI benefits, or how we can benefit from AI in education. So we come that most of the students highlight that they feel shy to ask. They feel like more what they don't know what to do and how they do and where to get it. So we think that implementing AI in certain way will help the MOE to improve the education. So here I would like to highlight some simple practice of AI in some of the regions where our robots has been created by students and teachers. And one of the examples, they have created a school bodyguard where it can be replacing the physical bodyguard, hopefully. And Alexa has been used also as a bank question. Yeah, and here was like advanced practice was in Dakhliya region, where they have developed an Arduino to develop a weather sensor where they can adjust what we call the greenhouses. So they want to improve the greenhouses. And last but foremost, the 3D printing, where a teacher can create some assisted tool for teaching math. What is the future of AI in MOE? We think that AI will help us by implementing the open data. As you know, that open data has become like the main focus for the Ministry of Education. We are thinking by using that data or the big data we are offering for the people from Oman and out of Oman to provide a solution that will help the students to overcome challenges in education. And yeah, we are developing an electronic participation page where we can gather all the students and teachers together and discussing how they can implement AI in education and what is the AI will be benefit them. Thank you for listening. I think we come to the last. If there is any questions, I'm ready to.
Thank you very much, Said, for that presentation about how AI has been used in Oman and some of the case studies where our students have been involved and how they've benefited from this new technique. Thank you, Said, and wishing all the best to the Ministry of Education in using this tool going forward. So now we would like to move on to the next speaker, who is Arun Kumar, who is a data scientist at Avemastu, based in Dubai, UAE. Arun, welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Amar, and Sadiq. Thank you for holding this event called Comics AI, especially in Oman. I think this is a great event, given, you know, where we are seeing a lot of introduction and interaction with AI and the advanced intervention of information technology in the sector of education. Thanks to Edwin, Said, and Omar, and all the other fellow panelists who have represented their views. My views about AI in education are specifically going to be centered around how we as a company and myself as a CEO and a chief data and analytics officer is building a product, you know, which is specifically centered around using the artificial intelligence into the education domain. So I will just try to share my screen and present a few facets of what we are trying to do as a part of our product offering, and how that is going to impact not only India and MENA region specifically, where we see a lot of focus on education sector. So let me just pull up my screen. I hope let me know if you all are able to see my screen, please.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yeah, the first and foremost question is, many of us, we have been constantly battling about the word artificial. In my opinion, we have had enough discussions about what artificial intelligence is, what all it can do or what it cannot do. In my sincere and honest opinion, where we are trying to use information technology, or so to say, this intelligence is adapted to our requirements. So in our opinion, we are calling it more of an adaptive intelligence than artificial intelligence. We are going to use this technology. We are going to use the different algorithms. We are going to use the abundant and available data sets at our disposal to adapt it to the requirements of the education as a non-profit organization, you can say, or more of a for-profit organization, you can say. I think Edwin has presented a great view about how Huawei is bringing in a lot of change. We have also heard Dr. Jassim mention, how he has been on both sides of the usage of technology in education. We have also heard Said mentioning about how the Ministry of Education in Oman is bringing in, the technology to the aid of education. So to say, technology has never been, I would say, a bane for anyone. It is just the ability to use it in the right sense is what brings in a great ability for the technology to give you the right results. Now, we have seen that over the last few decades, especially the last decade, I must say, even with the advent of technology, human has been longing for a human touch, a human to talk to, a real human to, share his feelings. If we take the example of very advanced countries like Japan, we see people are lonely. We see that the generation, even though they are very educated and senior, they are longing for a real human to share their experiences. Yes, we have robots. Yes, we have humanoids. Yes, we have reached a stage where the artificial humanoids or artificial humans can mimic a lot of human emotions and behavior, but they can never replace a human. So in that context, the way we need to focus is look at more adaptation of technology than looking at it more from an artificial point of view. Some of the key aspects of the usage of intelligence or the AI algorithms, machine learning, and different concepts in data science, we are focusing on three specific areas. Area number one, where we see is globally, there is a shortage of quality teachers. And we must all agree to this as a fact. If you look at most of the developing nations that have even, well-developed infrastructure, many a times the shortage of teachers is felt, especially those who are well-trained, teachers who can understand the students' issues. Now, in some of the countries, those who have been with the education sector, you may know that autism is, a growing concern. ADDH, again, a neuro-related issue, especially in the kids, dyslexia. These kind of things are impacting the kids, the younger generation a lot. And teachers who are specifically trained to identify such traits within young children, they need to be there to attend to their physical needs and help them educate better. This is one area where we are looking at bringing in this adaptive intelligence into the robots or the teaching assistants, I can say, who will learn the human behavior better or the kids behavior better, along with the inputs from specialized instructors who know how to identify such specialized kids. That's number one. Number two, the product that we are building is specifically India centric. Now, as many of us know, India is a land of vast diversities. So when I speak of diversities, I will only stick to the diversity of languages spoken and the way people interact with each other. By the time you cross about 15 miles from your hometown, there is a small change in dialect. By the time you cross 50 miles, you are already in a different state where a different language is spoken altogether. Luckily or unluckily, when the British left India, they all binded us with one common language called English. But still, we see that majority of primary education in India is imparted in the regional languages. And when we come to the quality of education offered, each state within India has got its own agenda of imparting education. Even though we have nationalized centers of offering education, there are different school boards. I believe Oman also has some schools which are operated by Central Board of Secondary Education from India. So given this context, we see that there is some streamlining of education in terms of the syllabus, in terms of the offering it is being done, but there is a lack, especially when it comes to the different states managing to impart education to the students. So this is one area where we are trying to build this concept that you deliver in one language, the students can understand in the native language, and whatever the answers the students are giving can be understood by the teacher in a language that he or she can understand. So let's say that we start to impart education in English only. In real time, the information what the teacher is trying to give can be translated into different regional languages, what the students can understand in that particular town, city, or village. And at the same time, the students need not be enforced to probably learn a language just to interact with the teacher. So this is one of the problems that our product is going to solve. Second aspect that we are trying to highlight, as I mentioned, is all about the quality of teachers. Now we know that quality comes at a price, and fortunately or unfortunately, it's not always in the right, I would say, construct of any organization or a government to be able to identify teachers at such large, recruitment, or you cannot have so many people who are all equally well trained to, be able to impart education. So this is where you need to take the help of technology, and you can use teaching assistants in the form of robots who can take a lot of care on multiple different tasks. I do not want to reiterate on some of the points which some of my fellow panelists have already covered. I think they have gone in great depth in covering the various nitty-gritty issues of the entire teaching cycle in a day-to-day school or a college or a university, right from setting up the exam papers, correction of the papers, imparting education, interacting with the students, collecting the feedback, analyzing the feedback, and having a better student report card, I would say, a more realistic report card of a student. So some of the key areas that we are going to work upon, I'm just trying to highlight those. So these are some of the areas where our product is going to work. One is early learning, adaptive learning, designing of the course material, imparting online learning, language learning. This is where our majority focus is, given the diversity of Indian languages, and India as a huge geographic nation. Writing, coding and maker, test preparation, scheduling, exploration, assistive technology, and assessment. I'm sure many of you have had, over the course of these 6 days in COMEX, more or less have heard about a lot of focus on all these areas. One of the key aspects again we want to focus is writing. Again, if we look at the advent of technology today, majority of students, especially from lower kindergarten to almost until high school, they learn a lot about cursive writing, handwriting. There are handwriting notebooks and all. But by the time you come to your higher grade, higher school, all you do is you give your examinations on a computer, and all you are required to do is learn your typing skills. What happens to all your writing skills then? Even today, with the way the digital communications are happening, we see that we are predominantly dependent on our phone, tablet, or laptop. Again, our writing skills are probably just left alone. Maybe we have long left it. I don't know for good or bad, but somewhere we need to introduce this or keep this aspect of writing to a great extent. The other part which we are also working on in making the artificial intelligence more adaptive into the education is in the field of diagnosis, which I mentioned about, the students who are differently abled, who have got different, I would say, conditions which impair their learning abilities, much unlike a normal kid. So these are some of the areas where this assisted intelligence can help in diagnosing and identifying such students. Analytics, guidance systems, competency management, learning profiles or learner profiles, learning management systems, experience management, one-to-one mentoring. Dr. Jassim mentioned about one-to-one mentoring and the future not too far, where every kid can afford a kind of artificial robot or a robotic humanoid who can be his personal assistant. Recruiting and onboarding, staff scheduling, and professional learning. So these are few elements within our product which we are trying to bring upon as one unified system where we are going to enable this. I would just like to very briefly touch upon how we are trying to bring all of this into action and what's our roadmap as a company and what's my roadmap as a CEO of this company, how we are bringing in the technology into life, and when we can, demo this product probably in the GCC, maybe in Q3 this year or end of Q4 this year. So this is exactly what we are trying to do. We are building a product which is more on demand, and you can scale it up and down based on your requirement. It has the ability to adapt to multiple different curricula which is offered in both India and GCC. The product is specifically being targeted at both India and GCC as different market areas. So this is purely a SaaS concept, which is software as a solution on the cloud. And as I mentioned, we are using the latest tech stack using the AI and ML advanced algorithms for better user experience and decentralization of data. Now, the most important part we are looking into is real-time analytics and results for instant and on-the-go decision making. The second part that we are looking at is we are breaking this product into mobile only and desktop only. Now, there are some solutions which are required to be more mobile. You cannot always afford to have a tablet or a laptop at your disposal. So you are bringing in some amount of learning, assessment, and interaction between the teacher and students to the mobile platforms, whereas a majority of it will still remain more in the terms of desktop. Now, some of the user benefits that we are going to do is on the go. This is exactly our mantra, that the product must be completely mobile. It should not disrupt your day-to-day activities because you are not at home or you are not at office. Second thing is notify me anywhere and wherever you are, you will get notifications. Easy management. So the entire system is built in such a predictive manner that any kind of a issue that may come up, our system will identify it and resolve it. And last but not the least, we say no English, no problem. I know English is a binding language globally for many of us, despite many of us speak Arabic in the Middle East and Northern African regions, but we are all conversing today in English. Similarly, when you go to Europe, there are multiple different languages, but again, English is a binding language. So at this moment, we are focusing on the diversity of languages in India and the diversity of some languages and dialects in the Middle East. So this is something where we are just trying to work out. We are currently in the ideation stage, but the product blueprint is ready. We have filed for 3 patents, both in Indian Patent Office and US Patent Office for this product. And some research is going on how to make this product more real-time adaptive, as I mentioned, for the conversation between teachers and students. Very briefly about us, we are present at 4 different locations across the globe. I'm pretty happy to be, working out from the Middle East office in Dubai. Even though we have an office in Delaware, US, we have our headquarters offshore in Bangalore, and we hopefully look forward to, work in Singapore shortly. Nevertheless, of what our traction is, we are very much focused on delivering the best of adaptive intelligence in the domain of education. And I'm sure that, with the passing of next few months and years, we will see a lot more traction, a lot more companies, a lot more individuals focusing on this arena, wherein they will bring the best of technology to the best of use for the humankind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun Kumar, for telling us more about your product development and how it is going to help education. Now we would like to welcome Dr. Omar Reda. Dr. Omar Reda is a psychiatrist. He represents an organization called Untangled from the United States of America. It's a very interesting perspective. So we welcome Dr. Omar Reda. If you could kindly introduce yourself briefly and do your presentation. Dr. Reda, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. It's really a pleasure to be with you. I'm very excited. I visited Oman in November of 2018, and I look forward to having more visits, hopefully, to the Sultanate. I fell in deep love with the people there, very, very kind people. So today I'm going to talk a little bit from a different perspective about the social and emotional learning aspects of education. And I think there is a perfect match between technology and psychology. So I am a psychiatrist. I come from Benghazi, Libya, but I live in the United States, and I have been privileged working with many people who are traumatized by going through the refugee experience or because of war zone. So I had been into different contexts, and out of that came up my model, Untangled. I think many people, both individuals, especially children and their caregivers, families and communities, are tangled in a web caused by the trauma. And if we don't really pay attention to the trauma, we might pass it from one generation to another. So I'm grateful for my co-panelists. They did a great job addressing the academic parts. And I think, Aaron, you mentioned a little bit the importance of focusing on the human, also not forgetting about the student and their emotional needs. So I'm grateful for that. And today I'm gonna think a little bit out of the box and tell you, even though the year 2020 was very, very difficult year, I think maybe it's the most memorable year for our generation. Out of that year, many beautiful things came out. And I think one of the most beautiful things is the marriage of psychology and technology. And I think they had many beautiful children out of that marriage. And these children are bringing lots of healing to the traumatic stories of our students and also their families. So yes, there are many deep wounds that we don't see that are caused by trauma. Whenever I go to refugee camp or a war zone, people focus on the visible wounds, the physical, bleeding wounds, but many times we forget that there are invisible wounds that are the psychosocial dysfunction that's caused by the trauma. Most of the time it happens in a relational context. So we see families that are fighting, we see communities that are fighting, we see children usually paying the price, and many of them are showing academic decline. Some of the children, they don't have the words to express their trauma, so they will show their trauma through behaviors, and sometimes if we don't listen to them, we might punish that behavior, and that will continue the cycle for them, or they might not trust us anymore with their needs, and they continue to suffer in silence. So I'm a big fan of emotional expression. I think there is lots of hope when we give people permission to talk about their difficult encounters and their deep feelings. And in the words of Rumi, he said, there are beautiful things you can only see in the dark. I'm a very big believer of that. I have seen it with my own eyes, both working with the psychiatric patients here in the United States and also visiting trauma survivors in different parts of the world. So, focusing on trauma of the child or the family will bring lots of healing for the whole community and eventually the whole society. So yes, some of us parents, we see the internet as our enemy. We think it's only a curse. Our children are forced to spend more hours online. I think really we need to change our perspective and try to find the good about the internet and also the use of technology. And today we are meeting each other because of these beautiful platforms that help life go semi-normal, especially for the schooling and also for business transactions that kept us alive throughout this difficult and long pandemic. And I'm very glad that we are seeing some signs of improvement. I know not every country is seeing that, and my heart goes out to my brothers and sisters in India and other parts of the world where they are hit hard by the coronavirus. The United States, we have seen with the vaccination, there are many signs that the virus is going away, and I hope that will be the case very soon for everybody throughout the world. So we have, you know, in the mental health field, usually we need to have face-to-face encounters with our patients. We need to watch their eye contact, their body movements. We need to, you know, read their non-verbal cues, their tone of voice, and sometimes that will be a disadvantage with the use of telepsychiatry, seeing somebody through a screen. But it has been advantage for people who live in rural areas, people who are very afraid to be exposed to the virus. So there are good things that are coming out of the use of telemental health. Working with refugees and people from extreme trauma caused by human violence, I really try to focus not only on the pain and the dysfunction. I try to be part of the solution and to make the children and their families part of the solution. So I created this initiative called Untangled, and it has been replicated in my home country, Libya, but also in Syria and Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, and also I'm working with communities in the United States and Canada, and hopefully also I'm going to visit a few other countries in the Middle East to try to bring some of the healing that have been brought to the communities that were served with Untangle. So very briefly, we do education, we provide training. So education is very important to tackle the stigma associated with mental health. Many people, they see you know, emotional suffering as a sign of weakness, or maybe it's you're not very close to God. Maybe people are really forced to not talk about their you know, deep suffering, because otherwise they'll be dismissed, or the whole family will be brought into shame, and their daughter will not get married, and all of these misconceptions that are very sad and very unfortunate, and they add to the suffering of you know, individuals and families. I try to train both the children and also their caregivers, including the teachers, on how to provide emotional expression, not necessarily just focusing on the trauma story, because it's not easy to listen to the traumatic stories of others, but rather to focus on the resilience and how they survived the worst of what they have been through. Building safe spaces that can be, you know, the classroom, maybe one classroom every week, 45 minutes will be wonderful if we focus on emotional and social learning of our students. Culturally responsive resources. So I don't go to a community as somebody who's arrogant and an expert. I rather sit with you know, the community, and I listen with a humility to what are their needs, what are the current services, what are the gaps, and we try to fill the gaps that way. Sometimes people will need you know, interventions like maybe medication management or actual psychotherapy, and we try to build whatever we can. And you know, Dr. Bruce Perry, he said you cannot really reach somebody's cortex or their you know, brain unless really you calm their amygdala, which is their emotional brain. So you cannot reach the critical thinking or the logical brain if the amygdala or the emotional brain is activated. If people are fearful, if they live in conditions that are unsafe, they cannot necessarily reach their full potential academically. So we need to, in order to reason with someone, we need to regulate and calm them down. And that usually happens through building a human connection and interpersonal relationship. So students who feel unsafe will act unsafely, and children who feel safe, they'll start to act safely, which will be wonderful. And really the easiest way to somebody's head is through their heart. So we reach the heart, we focus on the deep soul. We don't only take care of the affairs of the body, but we also take the care of the basic needs of the mind, the heart, and the deep soul. And we do that through bringing humanity back to the field of education. So some of the examples, you know, there are workshops that I do with the parents, both in the United States, and also this is a refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. Sometimes we focus on the family dynamics between the husband and the wife, try to bring safety into the household, because domestic violence will make children don't function as much as they should. some of the communities, they ask if we can open some clinics. And, I built a little bit of, academic writing. So I did so far 6 books that came out of Project Untangled that have to do with providing safety and, somebody who's a role model for the children. And you don't have to go to a refugee camp really to bring healing. You can focus on your local community. So these are the beautiful children in my home country, Libya. And these are the children here in Portland, Oregon, that we take into some camps and retreats. And we try to, bring them some social skills so they can survive the pandemic without really relational or academic decline. We try to bring some healing to the beautiful Rohingya refugees also. There is a book that's coming up in November of 2021, which has to do with taking care of the caregivers, both the healthcare providers, but also the teachers and the parents. And I do that because mom and dad, they provided me with a very safe childhood, and I was very lucky that way. I try to do the same with my wife and my 3 daughters. We created a YouTube channel called the Daughter-Father Bonding, so we can bond the children with their parents, because it's the most important thing we can do for our children is a safe household. Maybe the world is not a safe place. Maybe there is a pandemic, there is a racism, there is terrorism, but I try to make our house a place of safety and trust always. And this is the book Untangled that talks about family dynamics, especially when there is trauma in the background. And, I give lots of credit to Pixar and Disney. They came up with wonderful movies that have to do with the emotional needs of the children. This is Inside Out. It gives the children permission to talk about big feelings that they have, like sadness, anger, and fear. This is Finding Nemo, which talks about the trauma of the parents. So Nemo is a clownfish who basically was raised by an anxious father. His father was traumatized, and eventually, when the father felt safe, he started to give Nemo some permission to live a normal childhood. And this is Coco, who basically went against his family tradition in order to honor his grandmother. So bringing some healing into the family context through some of the cartoons has been very well received here in the United States and other communities. And never forget the caregiver, all of us who are trying our hardest. So this is called the Never Beast. This is a beast who was working very hard for getting his own basic needs, and eventually he had to collapse and go into hibernation. So all of us, we have to really focus on our needs in order to continue to serve others. And I do all of that to honor my loved ones who I lost. I lost my sister for brain cancer. That's why I went into the field of medicine. I lost my nephew for terrorism. He was killed by, unfortunately, a terrorist group in Libya in 2014. And that's why I try to do some of the healing in order to bring safety to children like his daughter. And I lost mom very recently. And she is somebody who told me, Omar, remember, if you cannot be the source of somebody's joy and delight, don't be the source of their pain and distress. So with that, I would love to stop here and hear if you have any questions. God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Omar Reda, for sharing insight about your work, your writing, the family, and the reason for what and why you're doing the work. Completely agree with whatever you have said, and we're so happy to have you on this panel. Now, as we do not have any speaker, one of the speaker has not yet joined in, so I would like to open the panel for question and answers. I will read out the questions, and feel free, panelists, to answer them. After answering the audience question, if there are questions among yourselves, please ask, so we can benefit from this panel discussion for a few more minutes. So the question is from Ali Al-Khatiri. Are there any studies which have shown that AI has had a direct positive impact in the quality of education and improvement in student performance? So the question is open. Who would like to take this question, please?
I can add
Yes,
a few.
yes, Edwin, please go ahead. Yeah.
Not because I want to, elbow my way forward, but I think from a technology point of view, the angle is as follows. AI is a piece of technology that has always been there, as Arun Kumar also mentioned earlier, but it's also a piece of technology that's rather new. So I think from a reporting and analysis point of view, I don't think there's much data available. What is available is, I would say, learning points. There is many information, and you can find this on the web. I would suggest that is the fastest way forward, where organizations or institutions like the United Nations that have specific subgroups related to education and so on and so forth, but also the World Economic Forum has specific subgroups and task forces looking at this. There's a lot of information available where the learning curve out of it shows that technology and AI enablement indeed is able to trigger faster, for example, where the learning curve of a student is going to, rather than a teacher physically having to do that manually. An AI engine can analyze that faster in a shorter time and more accurate and more holistic, and can also inform back, for example, to the teacher, where is the student lacking certain knowledge, and what would be a best way to provide that knowledge, but also what would be the best knowledge for it. So that would be my turn on the answer.
Thank you, Edwin. Any other speaker would like to comment or say something about this particular point about AI's impact on education and student performance?
Yeah, I would just like to add one or two more points here. Thanks, Edwin, for mentioning that, how AI has been impacting in multiple different positive ways. Internet definitely is the first gateway where you can find hundreds of studies which have already been conducted in depth to identify the positive impact. One of the impacts that we can definitely see, I think it was Edwin who mentioned the use of AI-backed cameras within the classrooms, especially teaching in China, where we can see that the student-teacher attention or how students are interacting with the teachers, how attentive they are, and how that attention deficit or the lack of attention deficit for the sake of it is benefiting the student community, how fruitful it has been that the teacher who is imparting a class or a lecture, how much students have been able to assimilate that information within themselves. This is one of a very positive impact of AI in education. The second thing that we see is the way the curriculum nowadays is being designed and the way the students have been assessed, that is changing very rapidly. You see, even in India now, we have recently adopted to a 5+3+3+4 kind of an education system than the traditional 10+2 system of education. So now what we are trying to do is break down the entire education into different smaller blocks where we look at the students' growth from a kindergarten to a middle school to a high school and then into a undergrad and grad program. So the assessments also are becoming more adaptive to each student's learning. It's not just like you set one question paper and you try to assess everybody on the ability to answer a question. The papers which are being set nowadays are more based on the adaptive intelligence of a student, of how better he or she can answer a question. And that's how the complexity of the questions is going up. So this is another positive impact of the usage of technology in education. The third thing is with the impact, or I would say the impact that COVID has had, we have seen a humongous impact of technology, where with the advent of technology, the ability of teachers to reach far and wide across all corners of society has also been observed. So to us, these are some of the very relevant and easily visualizable factors of positive impact of AI in education right now. But definitely there will be a lot more which are going to come up in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Arun, for that explanation. Dr. Omar, do you have anything to say on this particular question?
I mean, mainly my focus is on the social and emotional learning, and there's a huge body of evidence that if you focus on the emotional needs of the students, they will blossom. So I will be happy to put in the chat box some resources, some books that are very detailed about this topic.
Thank you, Dr. Omar. Dr. Omar, I just want to ask on the same point. You mentioned the emotional well-being of a child, starting from his home, his family, his caregivers, and how he would start to react and absorb education. Has there been significant work on understanding that a particular child has been impacted psychologically or through any kind of trauma among, let's say, the 30, 40 students which a teacher is caring for and transforming it, impacting education. And that particular child can be identified and some special care, special attention can be given. Is there some kind of advancement with AI technology on this particular aspect? If you could just help us understand.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Unfortunately, right, many children, when they exhibit a behavior because of trauma or living in unsafe household or because they have seen something that they have not shared with others, they might exhibit, behaviors that will be labeled. So we label them as, oppositional defiant or ADHD or borderline personality, or we give them all of these labels. When in fact, if we just spend a few extra minutes and try to listen to the message behind the symptoms, we will find the core and the root cause of the problem. And I think absolutely, I mean, it would be wonderful if, the artificial intelligence can aid the teacher, because most of our teachers, they don't have the luxury to spend these a few extra minutes with their heavy caseloads.
Thank you, Dr. Omar. There is another question. I will read it out. How can the students be effectively monitored during exams using AI?
Well, yeah. I feel a little obligated to start the answer again. I'm sorry for that.
Sure.
It depends a bit on what you want to call effective, but generally speaking, the component or the capability of AI in the world of computing, in the world of digital, for example, towards the research field of Dr. Omar and emotional intelligence, an AI engine underneath imaging and video technology can help in Zoom sessions, for example, where a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a group of caretakers speak to others on the other side of the screen, so to speak. An AI component in there can already be very helpful in understanding emotions that maybe are not spoken but seen. And it's very little details that you have to pay attention to very well in a personal one-on-one session. This is a little easier than when the psychiatrist or the psychologist, for example, has to gaze at the screen, which is already brain draining by itself, to see these little details in the facial expressions of their patients, for example. An AI engine can do that. In return, for exams, if this is a digital exam or if this is an exam that we're taking in a digital way, then maybe I have a twin brother who knows the answers better to the questions than I do. So there is camera technology that can actually recognize whether it is my twin brother taking the exam or whether it's me. There's also camera technology that can help understand if it is me who starts the exam, and after 5 minutes, I kind of, cough under the table, and then my twin brother again takes my seat. There is also AI technology available that can understand whether the eyes of a student are moving away from the screen or doing something else, whether they are looking at their, paperwork that sits on their lap, for example, or not. But I don't think this is the right way of using AI, actually. I'd like to add the following as well. I think what AI really is capable of doing is make sure that the information on a screen is presented in such a way that it optimizes that information to the individual viewer in the calmest way possible, in the in the less stressful way possible. I think that is where the power of AI combined with a face recognition feature, which can do the other stuff. You know, face recognition can understand whether it's me or someone else authorizing the exam. But the combination of all these technologies together really creates an environment where the learning environment becomes more intuitive, becomes more inclusive, becomes more embracing, rather than controlling.
Thank you so much, Edwin. If there are any more questions, I would request, yes, there is one. Right, that's from Omar Redda, doctor, humanizing rather than policing. Yeah, great. Right, completely understand that perspective. If there are more questions, please, audience, type it in and I will read them out. While you type the questions, I have a question here from my side. The pandemic setting in has made digital transformation of education at unexpected rate, and most of our children are studying from home, and the way we see will continue to study from home probably for the next 6 months to 1 year, or this may become the norm. We are not too sure as we get out of the pandemic. There are a lot of reports about increase in domestic violence and the stress environment created with many people at home, the life bread earner being jobless or not being able to earn. So this has created a lot of mental stress for children, as well as not having equipment, trying to cope up with internet connections, trying to cope up with private rooms. So there's a lot of things have happened. The question is basically, what is the advice for the students to kind of adapt to best practices, and how can they kind of get the help from the parents to do so?
Yeah, may I start? So my upcoming book, it's called The Wounded Healer. And I told you, I believe all of us are wounded healers, because we take care of our families and our communities. But I will divide it into 4, like I did in the book, 4 chapters. One is taking care of the child. So the children need to be empowered. So rather than punish them for these behaviors that are normal, most of the children are exhibiting normal reaction to abnormal situation. It's very abnormal for a child to live through a global pandemic. So we need to have lots of patience for them, and rather than using physical punishment. I agree with you. We have seen lots of restless energy. We've seen lots of anxiety, depression, even suicide thoughts and suicidal behavior. We have seen domestic violence, family breakdown, divorce. All of that we have seen increase in the rates of substance use. So we need to make sure that children are safe, but at the same time we need to look at the parents with compassion. They're trying their best given their circumstances. No parent is a bad parent. Every parent is trying their best to provide for their children. But if the parent basic needs are not available, maybe the parent themselves are going through anxiety and depression, and they don't feel safe. And like you say, many of them, they have lost their jobs, and financial strain is on the family. So we need also to look at the parents and give them the right tools rather than punish them and break down the whole family. Then we need to work with the system. So the system, in this case, it's the technology. And that's why I'm very glad that we are talking about humanizing. We're using, artificial intelligence as a way to bring compassion into the field, rather than just making it another stress and added burden for everybody involved. So we need to take care of the child, the parent, the system, but also taking care of ourselves, like educators as caregivers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omar. As I haven't seen any question, there's one last question I would like to ask, and let the speakers have a chance to ask questions to each other. What we have seen and read is that education has not changed for centuries. It was one curriculum, one approach of teaching and learning throughout maybe generations or decades, and it hasn't changed. Does the pandemic and specifically AI give a bigger opportunity for individualized teaching and learning, as we know that each one has a different capability to absorb and be taught. How does this give it, and how are technology giants like Huawei looking into this kind of window, and what do we expect will happen as we go forward with education systems?
Well, technology has the power to do that. I think I gave in my answers, but also in my presentation, a lot of examples and scenarios where that takes place. What technology does not allow us to do, unfortunately, is to yet reach everyone. We have more than 7 billion people on this face of the earth, and not all of them yet are being able to, it's not able to connect all of them yet. And that's not because of devices not being available. That's because global infrastructures don't reach as far as we would like it to go yet. And even in some nations where there is mobile networks and mobile connectivity available, there are not much opportunities yet in those areas or in those infrastructures or in those systems or in those countries even to add applications, for example, that children can use on devices. So it's not a devices problem all the time. It's sometimes also a connectivity problem all the time. And the third one sits, of course, with knowledge, understanding the technology, being an engineer in this field, and not just one, but one of many. Technology develops so fast that there is a huge gap already being created between where technology is today and where a student who leaves a vocational school for computing science, or where a technical university grad student or a PhD student leaves the university for that. Some of the initiatives that we do is bring technology back, connect students in every layer of society, but also every layer of education to technology. I am a big fan of coding technology teaching in K-12 schools. Just like when I was young, I was taught different languages. I think computing and coding language should be added, just like the language of empathy, adding towards Dr. Omar. We sometimes forget that, or it doesn't come in. But technology really is able to bridge that gap, and I think there's a lot of examples where that has already been done.
Thank you so much, Edwin. Do any of our speakers have a question to the other speaker? Please, you can ask now.
I just think the way of the future would be wonderful if we really listen to the children and not dictate one, curriculum on them. Many children that, they learn in different contexts and through different faculties, and some children, they enjoy, maybe education outdoors in nature, using animals, whatever it is. It will be wonderful if we have an individualized, care plan for every child that takes into consideration all of them, not only their mind, but also their body. They should not be sitting on a desk for 6 hours. Also their, heart, their soul, their spirituality, their emotions. That will be a wonderful way to look into education.
I fully agree, Dr. Omar, and I think technology, and specifically the AI component within digital technology, is very capable of providing that, unfortunately, in a digital way. Virtual reality, augmented reality, not so much looking at your screen, but wearing goggles, but then you are immersively pulled into a 3D environment of, where the world of nature and the world of animals can help understand how social behavior, for example, goes at play. But technology is a huge contributor to that, I would say, or facilitator maybe.
Thank you. Arun Kumar, do you have anything to ask or add?
No, I'm good. I have heard all my fellow panelists present, a lot of great insights and points. Yes, I agree to Edwin that technology definitely is going to pave the way for the next few decades. I also do agree to Omar that, humanization of this technology is what is required. Today, as much as we see the positive impact of technology, we are also seeing the negative impact of it. let's look at the digitization of, replacing textbooks with tablets. We already see children developing some, kind of issues with their eyes and with the thumbs and, their fingers, where they are not writing or, using their textbooks. Rather, they are just tapping and looking into the tab. So the blue light of a tab has got its own impact. So as much as a student is developing in his life and is coping to multiple different stress, the additional impact of technology must not add to the stress of growing up and learning, but rather it should be more of a facilitator in terms of having a healthy lifestyle, a healthy growing up learning. That's my viewpoint.
Thank you, Arun. Said, do you have anything to add or ask?
Thank you, Sadiq. I think today we have benefit from different people, Mr. Edwin, Mr. Omar, and Mr. Arun. I think the world will be more better together working and looking into AI and the implementation of how it does work and how to maximize the benefit of it in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Said. I would like to close the session now. Thank you so much, Edwin, from Huawei, for your presentation and the contribution to this session, AI in Education. Said, thank you from the Ministry of Education. Yes, it was very nice that we had Dr. Omar to bring in from the social development angle, and this helped us understand technology as well as the human element. Dr. Jasim Haji, he's not at the moment, he had to join from a phone. So thanks to him as well from the Bahrain AI Society. We do not have the other speakers, so thank you all panelists for your time. It was very useful, very nice, and we will put up this particular recording on YouTube for the benefit of all viewers who will start to look into what has been said and discussed. I would like to end the session now. We have something very interesting coming up at 11:30 Oman time. What we have done, because today is a day to talk about AI in education, we have given an opportunity for children as young as 9 to 13 years to speak about how AI plays a significant role in their lives, how the pandemic has made them understand the significance of technology, future technology of AI, and how they are using and how they see that they would be using such a technology going forward. We also have the same session with young adults from 13 to 16 years old. They understand technology a bit more. And they would talk about how AI has been useful to them. So this session would start at 11:30. We have the Ministry of Education supporting this, the Ministry of Technology supporting this. It's our first approach to get grassroots involvement of students, to hear them and to see what they have to say and to kind of include them in the development of information communication technology in the Sultanate of Oman. So with this, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you again, all of you. Everybody's presentation was very useful, very beneficial, and we look forward to having many more such engagements going forward. With this, I will end this session. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.